Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing. A bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal.
Huge spacecraft, one, will appear and hover over the hole.
25 years ago, whispers of a mysterious bottomless pit hidden on Manastash Ridge near Ellensburg spiraled into an enduring legend. Mention Mel's Hole to the locals, and you'll spark tales of paranormal phenomena, shadowy government interventions, and even accounts of animals returning from the dead.
Mel's Hole is a complex, very interesting mystery.
For skeptics, however, it's nothing more than a wild story conjured up by overactive imaginations. The exact location of this alleged abyss remains elusive. First brought to light by Ellensburg resident Mel Waters.
All right, when did you discover this hole?
Well, the hole has always been there. We've been out there for a couple of years now.
This enigmatic chasm has become the epicenter of chilling discoveries and baffling mysteries that challenge science and reason. But now, cameras lowered into its depths have reportedly captured disturbing and unexplainable footage, leaving even seasoned scientists shaken. So let's step into the unknown as we explore the legend, the lore, and the lingering questions surrounding one of the most unsettling mysteries of modern folklore. Known as Mel's Hole, this bizarre anomaly has drawn attention not only for its unearthly depth, but for the spine-tingling stories it has inspired. The pit first came into the public eye through Mel Waters, the property's former owner, who shared tales of its endless nature and strange behavior. It appeared unremarkable at first glance, a simple stone-lined opening roughly 9 feet wide. Yet this unassuming hole refused to fill, no matter what was thrown into it. Trash, machinery, and even car tires disappeared into the abyss, swallowed whole without a sound, an echo, or any sign of reaching the bottom. Mel's curiosity led him to investigate. Armed with his fishing gear, he attached a weight to a line and lowered it into the pit. Even after unspooling 4,500 feet of line, he found no trace of a bottom. Undeterred, he continued his experiment, sending nearly 10,000 feet, almost 2 miles, into the dark void. Yet still, there was no end in sight. What made the hole even stranger was the eerie atmosphere surrounding it. Dogs refused to approach, digging in their paws and growling as if sensing an unseen threat. Neighbors whispered about unnatural silences, no birds chirped, no insects buzzed. One neighbor recounted a story that was almost too strange to believe. Stricken with grief after the death of his beloved dog, he had tossed the body into the hole. Days later, he spotted the same dog alive, wearing its familiar collar, but acting as though it didn't recognize him. It was as if the animal had returned from somewhere beyond comprehension, altered in a way that defied explanation. In 2017, a team of researchers braved the pit in search of answers. Lowering a camera into the depths, they captured footage that stunned even the most skeptical viewers. What they saw defied explanation, forcing them to abandon their mission in fear of what might lie within. By 1997, Mel Waters found himself at a crossroads. The inexplicable nature of the hole on his property and the strange phenomena surrounding it left him searching for answers. In his quest for clarity, Mel turned to a place where the mysterious and unexplainable were not only discussed, but embraced. The late-night radio show Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. Broadcast from the heart of the desert and heard by millions worldwide, the show was a beacon for those intrigued by the unknown. If anyone could help him unravel the secrets of the bottomless pit, it would be the curious and open-minded audience of Art's program. On February 21, 1997, Mel called into the show and shared his story. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. Listeners across the globe were captivated by the tale of Mel's Hole, a pit that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Over the course of several broadcasts, Mel revealed more startling details: the strange radio interference near the hole, the bizarre behavior of animals, and even accounts of time seemingly bending. For instance, when Mel brought a radio close to the pit, it began playing old broadcasts, including a baseball game from 1967, as if the airwaves themselves were being distorted by the hole's presence. The story didn't just stay on the airwaves, it spread like wildfire. Listeners offered ideas on how to investigate the hole, suggesting tools like laser beams or ground-penetrating radar to measure its depth. But the growing attention came with consequences. Mel had unwittingly attracted the interest of the United States government. The day after his call to Art Bell, Mel returned to his property only to find it under lockdown. Military personnel had cordoned off the area, claiming a plane had crashed on the land. Helicopters buzzed overhead, and armed guards blocked the entrance. Despite their explanations, there was no evidence of a crash, no debris, no fire, no wreckage of any kind. When Mel pressed for answers, a man in civilian clothing emerged, implying that Mel no longer had rights to the property. The man's threats were chilling, hinting that if Mel caused trouble, authorities might discover illegal activity on the land. The confrontation didn't end there. When Mel threatened to go public, the man simply laughed, confident no one would believe him. But Mel's call to Coast AM had already struck a chord. Art Bell and his devoted listeners were ready to believe the unbelievable. A few days after their first conversation, Art Bell reached out to Mel Waters to see if there were any new developments. Mel had a startling story to share, one he hadn't witnessed himself but had heard from a trusted neighbor. The neighbor claimed to have seen something unimaginable, a dark beam of light shooting skyward from the hole, cutting through the clouds like a blade. It wasn't just any darkness, it was an absence of light so profound it felt alive, menacing. Though Mel didn't see this phenomenon firsthand, the description alone was enough to chill him. Callers to Art's show offered wild theories. The region around the hole, they said, was notorious for strange occurrences, UFO sightings, disappearances, and inexplicable events. Some believed the pit sat on a ley line, a supposed network of energy pathways crisscrossing the Earth. Others speculated it might be a portal to another dimension or a tear in the fabric of time. A few even proposed that anything thrown into the hole, trash, broken objects, even animals, could be transported to another realm entirely. One caller went so far as to suggest the hole was an entrance to the hollow Earth, an ancient theory of a hidden world beneath our feet. Mel also learned of peculiar local lore. A former neighbor recounted how, decades ago, stone pillars once surrounded the hole, as if marking it as a sacred or forbidden place. But as Mel's story gained traction, so did concerns about his safety. Listeners warned him that speaking openly might attract unwanted attention, especially from the government. And they were right to worry. Mel agreed to return to Art's show with updates, but when the time came, he was nowhere to be found. Calls to him went unanswered. A TV crew even traveled to Ellensburg to investigate, but they couldn't locate the infamous pit. What they did find were signs of military presence, equipment, plans, and evidence suggesting the area had been tightly secured. 3 years later, Mel resurfaced with a shocking revelation. He claimed he had been offered an astonishing sum of money, $3 million annually, on the condition that he relinquish his land, leave the United States immediately, and never speak of the hole again. Reluctantly, Mel accepted the offer and relocated to Australia. For 2 years he lived quietly, but the pull of home and family proved too strong. Against all warnings, Mel decided to return to the US. His journey back would plunge him into even darker territory. Mel attempted to keep a low profile, but his decision to visit family and share more of his story with Art Bell set a series of strange events in motion. While traveling by bus to see his nephew, an argument broke out among passengers. The disturbance escalated to the point that police intervened, forcing everyone off the bus for questioning. Passengers were eventually placed on a different bus. But Mel's day would take an even more surreal turn. Without warning, Mel blacked out. When he came to, he was in a dim alleyway in San Francisco, dazed and disoriented. 12 days of his life had vanished without explanation. His wallet was gone, his arm throbbed with pain, and upon inspection, he discovered puncture marks, evidence of repeated needle insertions. Tape residue around his arm suggested he'd been hooked up to IVs. It didn't end there. Mel tasted blood in his mouth, only to discover several back teeth were missing. How or why this had happened was a mystery, but it left him rattled to his core. Alone and confused, Mel struggled to make sense of his missing time and the injuries he couldn't explain. What had happened during those lost days? Who had taken him? And why? As Mel's story grew darker and more bizarre, it became clear that the mysteries of the hole were not just confined to Ellensburg. But Mel's troubles were far from over. He never managed to reclaim his land. Instead, he found himself tangled up in legal battles. Authorities accused him of unauthorized construction, roads, buildings, and more. But Mel knew he was innocent. After all, the government had occupied his land for 2 years. Yet none of that seemed to matter. Mel lost everything: his property, his livelihood, and his peace of mind. Then, just days after attempting to reconnect with Art Bell, Mel faced another devastating blow. When he checked his bank account, his money was gone. Every last penny had vanished. Skeptics quickly pounced on his story, dismissing it as an elaborate fabrication. But Art Bell, always drawn to the enigmatic, invited Mel back to share more. This time, Mel revealed something new. A TV crew had gone to investigate his claims. While they didn't find the mysterious hole, they uncovered evidence of significant military activity in the area. And then there was the strange case of the no-fly zone. Suddenly, planes were barred from flying over his land. The restricted airspace expanded, and soon even satellite images showed something peculiar, a black square covering the area on online maps. Critics claimed Mel concocted his story after seeing the blacked-out map. But here's the twist. That satellite imagery didn't appear until 6 months after Mel first called Art Bell. He couldn't have known about it. Just as the dust seemed to settle, a new chapter in Mel's bizarre saga began. A Native American tribe in Nevada reached out to him. They had heard about his hole and believed he might help them with a mystery of their own. They too had a bottomless pit they were studying, one steeped in ancient lore and inexplicable phenomena. Intrigued, Mel traveled to Nevada. Before he even laid eyes on this second hole, he had to meet with tribal elders and members of a nearby community known as the Basque, descendants of shepherds who had settled in the area during the 1800s. These groups wanted assurances that Mel wasn't working for the government or media. Once trust was established, they led him to the site. This hole was different from Mel's, but equally unsettling. Roughly the same size, about 9 feet across, it was ringed not by stone, but by an unidentifiable metal that extended deep into the earth. The surface of the metal felt warm to the touch, and when Mel accidentally dropped a tool onto it, there was no sound. It was as if the noise had been swallowed by the void. Curiosity drove them to conduct experiments. Their first test involved lowering a bucket of ice about 1,000 feet into the hole. They left a separate bucket of ice at the surface for comparison. When they retrieved the bucket from the depths, the results were baffling. While the surface ice melted normally, the ice from the hole hadn't melted at all. Instead, it was bone dry, resembling crystalline salt. Stranger still, it wasn't cold, but warm to the touch. Then came the most unsettling discovery. When they tried to melt the dry ice with fire, it didn't liquefy. Instead, it ignited, burning steadily for months. Each time they repeated the experiment, the results varied. Sometimes the ice remained unchanged, and other times it transformed into the same combustible material. One member of the Basque group suggested lowering a person into the hole to investigate further. But the idea was quickly abandoned. It was too dangerous, too unpredictable. They settled on using an animal instead, a sheep. As unconventional as it sounded, the group proceeded with the plan. But the sheep resisted, thrashing and bleating as if it could sense an unseen danger. Its reaction only deepened the sense of unease surrounding the hole. The team then carefully lowered a crate containing a sheep deep into the abyss, aiming to reach a depth of 1,000 feet. But something eerie happened. The rope suddenly stopped. The air around them grew heavy with an unsettling hum, an otherworldly vibration that seemed to come from the hole itself. They decided to leave the sheep in the pit for about half an hour. When they hoisted the crate back up, everything looked normal at first glance. But when they examined the sheep, it was completely still, lifeless. The discovery left everyone stunned and uneasy. To the Basque people, who had deep knowledge of livestock, this felt almost sacred, like they were tampering with forces far beyond human comprehension. Deciding to investigate further, they opened up the sheep. What they found was beyond horrifying. It was as if the sheep's insides had been cooked. A massive tumor had grown inside the animal, nearly filling its entire body. But the terror didn't stop there. The tumor began to move. Everyone froze, unsure of what they were witnessing. When they mustered the courage to cut it open, the mystery deepened. Inside the tumor was a strange creature, a small, seal-like being, but not quite a seal. It was connected to the tumor by something resembling an umbilical cord, and its eyes, shockingly human, stared back at them. The room was filled with silence, broken only by the faint electric hum of the hole in the distance. The creature began to move toward the edge of the table. Mel, though hesitant, felt compelled to help it. Despite its slimy texture and an oddly metallic smell, like the air before a storm, he carried it to the hole. Then, without warning, the seal-like being turned and leapt into the abyss. But before all of this, Mel had been gravely ill, diagnosed with advanced throat cancer. Doctors had given him little time. Yet, after his encounter with the mysterious creature, something extraordinary happened. His cancer disappeared. He felt healthier than ever, as if his body had been renewed. Mel believed the creature had healed him, a miraculous gift from an unfathomable realm. This experience transformed Mel's life. He returned to the Coast to Coast radio show with new stories. He also issued a warning. The road to the mysterious hole still existed, but anyone attempting to go there might face consequences. Months later, Mel shared another bizarre tale. One of the Basque people had taken a piece of the strange, ever-burning ice from their earlier experiments and used it to heat his cabin. At first, it seemed like an ingenious solution. The fire never went out, but soon things took a dark turn. The ice fire drained the cabin of all moisture, making the air unbearably dry. Even boiling water behaved strangely, with the steam vanishing directly into the flames. Then, the impossible happened. The wood stove, heated by the perpetual fire, sank straight through the floor. The cabin owner patched the hole and continued using the fire, but weeks later, the entire cabin collapsed into a fine dust, as if the structure had simply given up. When the man returned with his brother, they found the stove sitting 5 feet below ground level, in what appeared to be a miniature version of Mel's bottomless hole. It was eerily smooth and perfectly shaped, as if the ground had been altered by some unnatural force. It took a crane to extract the stove, but was this another creation of the hole's energy? The Basque people had their own theories. To them, the seal-like creature was a spiritual being, a messenger of the mysterious forces tied to the hole. They felt a profound connection to it, something both sacred and inexplicable. Furthermore, the revelations didn't stop at the hole itself. According to the Basque community, The strange seal-like creature that emerged from the pit found a way to communicate, not through speech, but via a series of beeps and clicks transmitted over the radio. To them, these sounds weren't random. They were messages, warnings, specifically about the dangers of the mysterious burning ice. The creature seemed to understand the catastrophic potential of this ice if it fell into the wrong hands. Art Bell, ever the skeptic and seeker of truth, pressed the Basque people for proof. They claimed to have recordings of the signals, a catalogue of every click and beep that carried the creature's cryptic warnings. Intrigued, Art encouraged Mel to return to the show with whatever evidence he could gather: audio recordings, photographs, anything tangible. The broadcast ended with promises of more revelations, but then something strange happened. Mel disappeared. His phone line went dead, and he stopped responding to Art's calls. For 5 long years, there was no word from him. Had he gone into hiding, or was something more sinister at play? When it comes to verifying the existence of Mel's hole, the facts remain elusive. Early satellite imagery from TerraServer reportedly showed a blacked-out area near Mel's described location. However, later scans revealed no such anomalies. Could the government have intervened to obscure its existence? Dedicated sleuths have combed through Mel's accounts, searching for the exact spot. Some even found properties matching his descriptions. 2 old structures, one partially collapsed, and a hole with a stone-lined rim. But upon inspection, these were nothing more than abandoned wells with visible bottoms. And what of Mel himself? His identity remains as mysterious as the hole. Public records fail to substantiate his claims, leading many to believe Mel Waters was a pseudonym. Yet, despite the lack of verifiable details, Mel stuck to his story every time he spoke on Art Bell's show. One of the most baffling aspects is the absence of any photographic evidence. Despite describing extraordinary events, Mel never produced a single picture of the hole. He claimed that cameras failed to function near the pit, citing strange interference. Other times, he insisted he had taken photos, but simply forgot to share them. It was an odd inconsistency that raised doubts even among the most devoted believers. Still, Mel never sought to profit from his story. He didn't write books, sell merchandise, or capitalize on the tale's popularity. If this was a hoax, it was an unusual one, crafted with care but lacking any financial motive. The hole itself defies conventional understanding. A pit allegedly so deep it seemed bottomless, yet structurally sound, despite the immense pressure such depths would exert. Geologically, it shouldn't exist, unless of course it was more than a natural formation, perhaps a gateway to another realm, as some have theorized. In 2017, a group of adventurers decided to investigate the legend themselves. Armed with modern equipment, including GoPro cameras and high-powered lights, they set out to uncover the truth. Their journey led them to a remote farm, where they encountered a hole matching the descriptions, a gaping void that seemed endless. They tossed rocks into the darkness, waiting for the sound of impact, but none came. As they explored, they noticed something unsettling, a figure watching them from a distance. Unease set in, and they decided to leave before something went wrong. To this day, Mel's hole remains an enigma. What do you think? Is Mel's hole a clever urban legend, or could it be a genuine phenomenon? Share your thoughts below.